Hi everyone, I think I've met most of you before. My name's Anna, I'm one of the workers at Healthwatch Leeds, and I'm chairing today. So I know we've got a bit of time booked in later on in the meeting to do introductions. And we've got a guest here today as well, Chad, who's going to be speaking to us for our second item. So what I'll do, if this is okay with everyone, is I'll hand straight over to Stacey, who's going to do the recap from the last meeting for about the next 5-10 minutes, and then we'll get on to the main event. Thanks, Stacey.
Yeah, that's great, Anna. Thank you. Yeah, so just to recap on the last meeting, talked about the Ellen Road site, that we've got some positive feedback, and just around it making sure that it's fully accessible for everyone. We talked about the Community Champions training, and we said that we'd have some more details in the next few weeks. Just to give you a bit of an update, so some of that started yesterday. The work with the CCG, they were looking to recruit roughly around 20 community champions, and I did send information out to everyone how to join onto that if people wanted to, but there's actually going to be in the near future some other opportunities around community champion work as well. So just to let you know that's on the agenda. We talked about there were some difficulties with carers registering with the GPs to get carer status, and possibly that people weren't previously registered with their GP as a carer. So it was just around having those difficulties getting in touch and getting registered so that they could get their vaccine. Talked about some pressures, what people are feeling within their organisation, and being frontline, just the pressures in general that I think quite a lot of us are facing. Increased numbers at food banks as well, so the number of people accessing food parcels and support at the food banks has increased as well. And they were just sort of the key sort of points that I pulled off from the minutes from last time. We've had a update in today just to let people know the Ellen Road site. There's some free slots on the booking system. So if any third sector staff frontline staff have not had their vaccine yet and are needing that, if you can use the links that have previously been provided. If you've not got the links, let me know and we can dig them out and send them over. And equally, for those people that are over 70 or clinically extremely vulnerable, if anybody's aware of anyone that's not had their vaccination or been invited for their vaccination, if you can please encourage and support them. Yeah, so just to give you a bit of a update on the current position in Leeds. So we're looking at roughly about 219 cases per 100,000. And that's a 16% reduction in the last 7 days. And that's the overall rate for Leeds. In terms of people over 60, that's 168 cases per 100,000. And again, that's a reduction of around 18%. So things are looking really positive, but again, the same messages still apply. Please keep safe, please keep the distance. And for those who follow the R number as well, so for the North East and Yorkshire, the R rate is between 0.8 and 1. So that's it from me, unless anyone's got any questions.
Lovely, thank you ever so much, Stacey. All right, well, that's great. We're ahead of time. I'll hand straight over to Chad then. Welcome, Chad. You're from Leeds City Council, and you're here to share the coronavirus toolkit, which I know a lot of us will be really pleased to hear about because it's been a very hot topic at the Communities of Interest meetings. So I'll hand straight over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna, and hi everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm from the Leeds City Council's communications and marketing team, and over the last few months I've been working on the as part of the coronavirus response. As Anna's already mentioned, I've been invited here to show you a new resource that we've got available, which you may have seen before, but if not, it's basically a one-stop toolkit where we've kind of included all of the resources that you can share with all of the kind of key messages on kind of posters, social media posts, leaflets, audio ads, etc. To share the key messages around coronavirus. So I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I'm just going to kind of cover three things, which is what it is, how it works, and how you can access it. So as I'll come on to in a little bit, the toolkit is hosted on Google Drive so that anyone can access it, whether they're internal or external to the council. But one thing I found from my own experience of using toolkits like this in the past is that they're often quite hard to navigate and understand what is in there. So for that reason, at the top of the Google Drive is a PowerPoint presentation, which has an overview of everything that is in there, and also has the kind of text kind of for the social media posts and things as well. So I've just remembered I need to put the link in the chat. I'll do that after, to actually access the toolkit. But once you click on the link, you'll come to this page. If you then double click the PowerPoint, then this should open. And the first thing I'd recommend doing is just having a look around, because I'm not going to be able to go over this in detail right now. So in terms of what it is, as I said, it is a one-stop shop for kind of all the coronavirus key messages. The stuff the materials that we're using, or that partners have asked us to share, and it just helps kind of, gives you and gives anyone that's working with communities the resources they need to just pick it up and use it. So on the first few slides of the toolkit, just a kind of introduction, basically talking about all the things I'm telling you right now. And that's a link which, as I say, I'll paste in the chat. In terms of the key messages that are included, there's kind of a full spectrum of kind of coronavirus messages. So which I've kind of grouped broadly into these broad themes, which are kind of prevention, testing and self-isolating, the support that's available, the national kind of restrictions, and also some reactive messaging, which we haven't used yet, but just in there in case we ever did have to use it, in case we had a particular hotspot, a particular area. There isn't anything on the vaccine information, but the reason for that is because after speaking with colleagues in the NHS, they've got their own public-facing kind of comprehensive resource with all the social media resources and things that you could need. So instead of including it, to avoid that duplication, I've just signposted to it. But everything else, all the other kind of themes, as I mentioned above, are included in here. There is also, in case you have to come back to this, or just to save you a bit of time, there's an interactive kind of contents page, so you can jump to the resources for the messages that you want to talk about. So as I mentioned, we have there's posters in here, and there's posters around kind of the key prevention messages. There's posters around kind of what to do if you've got symptoms and how to get a test and what those results means. And I should also say, based on feedback in the most recent version, I've added these stickers to make it really easy to see which resources have versions available in multiple languages. And I'm pleased to say that pretty much all of the core messaging has or is about to have very soon messaging available in multiple languages. So as I mentioned, there's also information around kind of the key support services available, all of which can be kind of printed or shared with digitally, however you please. I think I've already said that we've also included some things in here from partners who have reached out to us and asked to be for stuff to be added in here. And then in terms of the national lockdown resources, we're going with the national resources that you've probably already seen, simply because the restrictions and the rules change quite often. So this is the most effective way we've decided of kind of sharing it. And I haven't included everything that's on the Campaign Resource Centre, but I have included a sample of kind of the really, the key bits. But if you're interested, there is a link at the end of the PowerPoint to find more. As I mentioned, there are posters or leaflets. There's a range of kind of social media posts. I'm just waiting for the slide to load. And on the PowerPoint, you'll see the images are placed next to it. So there's a number, and that number corresponds to what the image is, and that will also, you can also find that in the toolkit. So have a look through it when you get a chance to see it in more detail. As I mentioned, I've also included a list at the end with extra resources, just in case you're interested, or if any of those might be of use. In terms of how to use the toolkit, so just open the PowerPoint, find what you're looking for, and then the type of resource and the kind of campaign is included on the PowerPoint. That corresponds to the assets that are in the Google Drive folder. So if you just, from the link that I'm going to put in the chat after, if you double click the assets folder, that is then broken down into the different types of resources available, which you can then open or download, and you can download anything in Google Drive just by right-clicking it, and you can also download particular folders if that was needed as well. Finally, in terms of accessing the toolkit, anyone can access it. It is a public folder, which I'm going to put in the chat, and please do share the resources as much as you can and as much as you think would be useful. I think I've covered all of the key points and all the questions in terms of how to use it. But if anyone has any more, then yeah, please just let me know.
Thanks for that, Chad. Really, really great to see as well that how you've responded to feedback and shaped those these resources around the feedback you've had from community organisations. Do we have any questions or any comments?
Sorry, actually, I should mention as well, one thing I've just realised I didn't mention, which is I've got a distribution list. So if you think you'll be using this quite often, or you want to just receive updates, email updates to let you know when something has changed or if a new resource has been added, then I've just got a manual kind of distribution list. So if you just email me to let me know that you want to receive those, then you will receive those. They have been weekly up to now, but as the toolkit has become kind of more comprehensive, they're probably going to become a lot less frequent because there's not so much more left to add. But yeah, just to mention that, and I put my email address in the chat as well.
Thanks, Chad. Anybody wants to come in there? Owen, I think I can see your hand up.
I guess there's some specific messaging that we've all been kind of working on, going directly to the communities that we work with. I should probably know the answer to this, and it's probably kind of to a degree Forum Central, but is there a possibility to include those kind of direct resources or anything like that, or a link to that in it? Because I know we've got our own kind of coronavirus toolkit, which might prove useful for other people.
Yeah, definitely. If there's another toolkit out there which is about a specific audience, then yes, to help make more people aware of it, happy to add a link to the other resources bit and help signpost to that. If you want to just email it to me, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Super. And I think Simon, I think I might have seen your hand up as well.
Yeah. So Chad, is it sort of dynamic in terms of the fact that if one of us is producing a resource or knows of a resource, is it just a simple case of emailing you and you can just add it to the toolkit?
Pretty much, yes. I mean, the only criteria, so in terms of the toolkit, the kind of approach we've taken is that it's all information that can be shared publicly, and also it's all aimed at kind of a general audience. Where there is a specific audience, then we tend to signpost to an additional resource. For example, we'll be adding something to the specific shielding toolkit, and yes, anything aimed at a very specific audience, we would signpost to rather than include directly. But yes, if there's something that can add something that we haven't already got, then happy to include it, as long as all the organisations involved are also happy as well.
I was just thinking at the example of, so the Mosques and Imams National Advisory Board have produced some fantastic information most recently, and notably related to taking the vaccine. Is that something that wouldn't necessarily be appropriate in the toolkit because it's very specialised?
So with that, I would probably, because it is quite a specific audience, I think I'll definitely include it, but only in the sense of signposting to it. Only because if we were to include everything for every specific audience, it gets quite long and a bit unwieldy. But definitely happy to include it in a sense of making people aware that it is available, and recommending that people use it, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Sam, would you like to come in?
I just wanted to come in on Simon's question. It's some of the discussions that we've been having with the CCGs, which Chad mentioned. They have a comprehensive website, and we've linked to their website through the toolkit. So we have become aware of some of those additional resources, but it's a case of how we use this to signpost people most effectively. But it's really useful to consider all of it, and lots of conversations to make sure that things are linking up.
Thank you very much, Sam. Any more before we move on to the next item? Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Chad. That's been really helpful, and I think you've popped your email in the chat. I think yes, you have.
Yes.
Super. So if anybody, I'm sure if anybody has any questions that come to them, I'm sure it'll be fine for them to approach you with that.
Absolutely.
That's great.
And just to let everyone know, we put the link as well in the agenda and Chad's contact email, so you can find it at a later date if you need to as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. That's great. Right, okay, well, that's super. In that case, thank you very much, Chad, for joining us. And we'll move on a little bit ahead of time to the next item in the agenda, which is organisational updates. We've got until about 5 to 2 o'clock for this, and I can see there's quite a few of us here today. So if we maybe keep to one, maybe a maximum of 2 sort of key observations or updates from your organisation, the themes that are emerging for your service users over the last couple of weeks. Is anybody, any volunteers to get us started?
Anna, just before we start, sorry, I just wanted to share something just so that people can see. I'll just share my screen. So just to let you know, when for each community of interest, all the information that you tell us every 2 weeks, the issues that the communities you're working with, whether it's digital exclusion and what the impact is. I just wanted to show you this because this is how we kind of pull some of that data together and then we share it further. So yeah, it was just around showing you that and making you aware. So it's really valuable, the things that you tell us.
That's great.
Can
Thank
I
you.
just, sorry, I'll just turn my camera for a minute. Can I just ask what the white bits are on that grid?
So the white bits are possibly where we've not heard anything back from, or that either someone's not been to the meeting, so we've not particularly heard from that community. Or it might be something that they've not raised in that time.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks ever so much for that, Stacey. And that looks really a really good resource, and maybe something we could come back to at a future meeting, maybe, and see sort of what's coming back in the other direction when you've raised these things, because I know it's always really fascinating to hear what people have done with the information that you fed in. That's super. Thank you. All right, well, if we spend, maybe the next half hour, 35 minutes or so updating 1 or 2 key observations and updates from the last couple of weeks. Do we have any volunteers to start? If not, I can start from very quickly from a Health Watch perspective to get the ball rolling. As you might know, we've been doing an engagement on mental health for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and we're expecting to get the results out for that hopefully at the end of this week, so please keep your eyes peeled for that. We're also looking to pull together a lot of the engagement work that is happening in the city around vaccination. I'm sure, as you all know, there's lots and lots of engagement going on here, there and everywhere about vaccination at the moment, and it's just a question of sort of pulling it all together, pulling all those findings together and making sure they end up at the right place. So just a bit of a plea, really, that if you engage with your service users about vaccination, you pick up some really interesting intelligence about it, please do get in touch with us so that we can collate it and make sure it's heading in the right direction, and that we've kind of got a coordinated part of engagement, as it were, that goes to the right place. So that's it from Health Watch. Who's next? If not, I'll pick on somebody. Sam, thank you ever so much, Sam.
I think I'll follow on from you, Anna, since you joined our team this week, which was very timely. A lot of the conversations at the moment have been around GP registrations, particularly for migrant groups who experience a number of barriers registering with the GP, as well as those who are, undocumented. So Anna joined our team meeting today and will be joining the Leeds Strategic Migration Partnership meeting, where Public Health will be coming to talk about the vaccinations. I think everyone may have seen a report this week that regardless of status, the vaccination amnesty for everyone. So that's maybe been a bit of a key area from the migration perspective.
Super, thank you ever so much, Sam. Who's next? Should we go to, may I go to Simon next, just because you're next on my screen, please?
Yes, no problem. So I think in the world of faith, the big thing is about vaccinations and encouraging, and there seems to, the messages seems to have been ramped up in the last couple of weeks about the importance of people, particularly from BME faith communities, having the vaccination and trying to dispel some of the myths. I mentioned the Mosques and Imams National Advisory Board. Kari Asim from Makkah Masjid has been fantastic in terms of how he has tried to be the voice of faith. So I think that's really a big thing that's happening as far as faith communities are concerned. Another thing that Leeds Faith Forum have been trying to do is to tell people about the census, which is taking place in March. And I think there's a lot of relevance there, because as people will be aware, if people are, disclosing their faith or ethnicity in the census, that can translate to, the provision of health and social care. So I think what we've been trying to do is to tell people when the census is taking place and to really encourage them to complete it. And I know it'll be very, very difficult this year to actually complete the census, and they know it's not the easiest document to complete, but that's something else that we've been doing. We're also hoping to co-opt somebody from Leeds City Council's public health team to our Leeds Faith Forum board, and then it means that there's sort of a regular public health presence at all of our board meetings, and that's it.
Thanks, Simon. That's really great. Yeah, and I think it was Sam mentioned the census at our last meeting. So it's clearly a topic that's gonna be really quite key this year. So that's great. I'll hand over to, may I hand over to Rich next, please? Rich Warrington. Thank you.
So if people that don't know me, my role is supporting third sector Leeds, which is supported by VAL, but is a kind of network of, I suppose, representing as far as we can the views of all of the third sector. Yeah, I support third sector Leeds, which is supported by VAL, but it's a network that tries to gather the views of the whole sector, really, and we do that through a group of elected representatives that come from different forums. The main focus of third sector Leeds obviously is not really so much on communities, but more on the third sector. The big topic of debate at their meeting yesterday was the looming challenge in terms of funding for the sector. Frankly speaking, we know that a number of organisations are under real financial stress, and the focus of third sector leaders is on finding ways to reflect that back to policymakers and also try and come up with some practical answers themselves. Not an easy nut to crack, but that's the debate. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the things that we've been hearing so often through the pandemic is how vital third sector organisations are as a conduit between services and people. So, they couldn't be more important now than they ever have been. So yeah. Can I hand on to Mike next, please, from Deafblind UK?
Thanks, Anna. I think after that, well, I know after the last meeting we had, our service information was circulated. So thanks to Stacey, I think it was, who did that for me. Just in terms of any update over the last couple of weeks, we have now added a formally trained counsellor to our mental health support services. She's only with us one day a week at the moment, but we're working on that. So we do have a bit of a triage system in operation now for anybody who's needing the slightly more hands-on supportive aspects of the mental health support. As you know, we have a 6 weeks at a crisis support service, but that's really what Stacey will be doing at point of referral, really, is triaging into that service or the actual counselling. So that's one particular development over the last couple of weeks. We've also, in the last couple of weeks, finally got our new telephone-based system for virtual groups up and running. That's been successfully trialled now. It's working perfectly. So as from today, well, last week onwards, we will have much greater scope for running more virtual telephone-based groups for smallish groups of people that are manageable. I think that's it from me.
Thanks, Mike. That's great. Next on my screen, Caris, could you give us your update, please?
Hi everyone. There's been a couple of areas of focus for us over the last couple of weeks. One being supporting with the Elland Road site. So I mentioned on the last call around accessibility. So we've been asked to supply interpreters on a daily basis for the site, which has been a fantastic offer. So we'll be face-to-face interpreters present over the next couple of weeks initially, particularly to support the older members of the community and the more vulnerable members of the community that are arriving for vaccinations. So with the scale of that project, it's really difficult for people to request a specific communication method, or obviously to highlight in advance who will be arriving and when for the vaccine. So we've been working on supplying interpreters for the site, which as I say, that will be the case over the next 2 weeks. Alongside that, we've been working on really building up our online engagement, really. Quite a lot of difficulties up until sort of this point with people wanting to engage online, but we've seen a really good uptake in people now sort of participating, and we've managed to access some IT equipment for some people who haven't had that before. So there's been some good sort of positive messaging and kind of signs, if you like, around people engaging more online now. So we've had a couple of the groups reset up, and that's been really positive as well. So we're focusing around that, and just really on communication, sharing of messaging, sharing of health messages and all of that kind of thing. So that's probably our 2 key areas up until this point.
That's great. Thanks, Caris. And really interesting to hear about how things are going with your sort of digital uptake. I know we've got that on the agenda a little bit later on, so that's really interesting. I think can I ask Chris to come in from a CCG perspective next, please?
Hi, afternoon everyone. I'm Chris Bridle. I'm the involvement manager at the CCG. Yeah, I think, like Anna said, there's been a few issues around sort of coordinating all the activity that's going on, all the comms and engagement activity around related to the COVID vaccination. So I really welcome Healthwatch doing that piece of work to sort of try to understand what's happening, what activities are happening to engage sort of local communities in understanding their views around the vaccine. So that'll be really helpful. The other thing I think that we're working on at the moment is trying to work with the People's Voices group and Healthwatch and Forum Central. I think we're asking patients a lot and the members of the public a lot about what they think about COVID and the vaccination, and we're certainly telling them what they need to do. We're constantly giving them information about what they need to be doing, but I don't think as a city we've really sort of thought about how we've demonstrated how we're using their feedback to sort of shape some of the interventions and some of the things that we're doing. So I'm hoping that over the next couple of weeks we can work together to sort of outline how we've been listening to people over the last year, what the key themes are that people keep telling us, because there are some very clear themes that are coming out, and what we're doing as a city to address some of those themes. So I'm hoping that we can start to pull together some kind of a public document that we can share with members of the public and voluntary community faith sectors, and also some of our senior leaders, demonstrate all the work that's going on, because there's some excellent work, but it's not being pulled together. And just the other thing to say is that I've just popped into the chat on the NHS Leeds website. We've sort of become the hub for COVID information and COVID vaccine information. So I've put the link in there, but if if you need any information around COVID or the vaccine, you should be able to find it there. There's loads of great stuff around, resources that have been developed for local communities that you'll find on there as well. And if there's anything missing, I've put our email address in there. So let us know if you think there's a big gap somewhere, and we'll see if we can plug that. Thank you.
Great, thanks ever so much, Chris. Next, can I go to Damien, please?
Hi, yeah, thanks. Yeah, my name's Damien. I'm the coordinator of the Mental Health Unlocked network, which is hosted by Forum Central. At our last networking meeting, just last month, the issues that came up for those working with men in Leeds were around, and a lot of this is typical to all genders really, so a lot of it won't surprise you, I'm sure, but loneliness and isolation, increased anxiety and fear about unemployment, increase in suicidal thinking has been reported, lack of men coming forward to services, difficulties for agencies to build the trust needed due to obviously the restrictions in place, difficulties for male partners in childbirth at this time. Zoom fatigue was recorded as well. Wellbeing for autistic men has declined due to the need for specialist support, and I dare say that's the same for anyone needing specialist support. Men are being referred to organisations and turning up, but there's been no sort of nurturing of the handover by organisations, so there's just sort of arriving upon them, although I think that might have been referring more to when in-person activities were taking place. And also increased levels of abuse towards men, domestic abuse towards men, you know, not just partner abuse, but amongst the family as well, obviously, you know, with the increased tension caused by being together in lockdown. On the plus side, we've seen more self-advocacy in men, and also with we support one of our delivery partners for Mental Health Unlocked is Barker, and they've been distributing as part of this project tablets to digitally excluded and isolated men, and they get a bit of support with that as well. And on the plus side, well, the obvious plus is they've distributed about 80 tablets to men around the city, and they can link it, and you know that there was ongoing support with that. But the good thing is that in terms of technical support, a lot of these men, once they get the initial tablet and the initial introduction session, a lot of them just gone on and run with it and not needed any more support, which has been great for the project itself, because they've been able, their volunteers have been able to then move on to the next person and get that work done a lot quicker. So yeah, there's a nice positive there, and gives you a bit of hope for sort of including people digitally in the future, and how it might be a bit easier for people than perhaps what we thought. Just finally, I'm just going to put a link in the chat, if that's okay, to the our database of activities for people to add to. Please do, of men's activities around Leeds, which I'm sure will be a useful resource, and we're releasing that soon. And also our next networking meeting next month. Okay, and that's me, Anna. Okay,
that's marvelous. Thank you ever so much, Damien. And as Chris says in the chat, some really worrying themes coming out there, and obviously something that, yeah, I know we've mentioned in previous meetings. Sometimes it's those sort of, in inverted commas, low level kind of mental health that actually builds and you know, there needs to be planning in place now for how we're going to cope with that in the future. Thank you for that. Can I go to Sarah Wilson next, please?
So I've just got a couple of things to quickly talk to you about. The first one being, as many of you know, in 2017, the government asked for an independent review of the Mental Health Act, and a consultation on that is continuing and will close on the 21st of April. We wanted to run a consultation for anyone who'd like to be interested, who is interested, so that we can do an organisational response. For those of you that don't have the time to do a response solely on behalf of your organisation. So we'll be running that consultation on the 6th of April between 10 and 12 p.m. If we're particularly wanting to hear from people working with the Black community, people with learning disabilities and autism, because we know that they're disproportionately affected by the Mental Health Act currently. So please do let me know if you'd like to be involved in that consultation. If you can't make that date, we can also have a one-to-one, or you can feed in your thoughts via email. Just really aware that people are pressed for time, but it's such an important piece of legislation. So just trying to make it as easy as possible for everyone who wants to contribute to that. Second thing is that as part of the mental health collaborative work, we're focusing on priority 6, access to crisis services, and we're going to be creating a wider reference group. So there's a core reference group of crisis services, and then we want to bring together services who obviously will have people presenting to their services in crisis and will have a lot of insight and learning in terms of taking away barriers or what works and what doesn't. So again, if anyone would like to be a part of that wider reference group, I'll put my email in the chat, and we'd love to have as many of you as possible if you feel that'd be valuable. And again, if you can't make these kind of big long meetings, get in touch with me and we can see other ways that you could feed in, because I'd love to hear your views. But that's it from me.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Next on my screen, I've got Abigail from BME Hub.
Hi everybody, Abigail Lally from BME Hub, project worker at BAL. Nothing really to update on apart from just a general background. The Hub hosts 3 subgroups: arts and culture, health and wellbeing, and the education, training and employment subgroup. And as part of that mandate, the group wanted to deal with digital inclusion. So now we're working with 100% digital, hopefully putting together some training for our members, but also available to all the organisations that work with culturally diverse communities. So more information will be kind of shared when that's confirmed. And also just in terms of COVID messaging, amplifying as much as we can to member groups that we work with. And also, just in case anybody, I'm sure we all know this, but BHI are having an event this evening specifically for culturally diverse communities. So if you can get to that 6 p.m, please do. But yeah, just generally supporting the work that most organisations are doing. And like I said before, we're the group very open to work with organisations on different things that you would like to work on, really. So my email, I'll put it again in the chat, but I think most people have it now. So that's basically it for me.
That's lovely, thanks Abigail. And I'll move on to Amy from 100% Digital. Amy, I know you're doing an item for us a bit later in the agenda, but I don't know if you've got 1 or 2 updates you'd like to share now.
Yeah, that's all right. Hi everyone. It's nice. It's the first time I've come to this meeting, but it's nice to see quite a few faces that I recognise, and also organisations that we've worked with, even if I've not worked with you as individuals. So yeah, I've got a little bit of a general update later, but I just wanted to say I had my hand up when Damien finished speaking. So the Barker Men's Health Unlocked project has been absolutely amazing, and one of the things that we found, so one of the things that we have is we've done all this digital champions training with lots of different people across the city, and one of the biggest ones that's been really successful has been social prescribing teams. So I'm now being basically, in a positive and happy way, harassed by people from Lincoln Leeds that are all recognising that digital inclusion is a really important part for people to be able to engage with stuff. And they've been signposted these people that need to engage with things, and they're all keen to engage. And the sticking point at the moment is digital equipment. Digital equipment, absolutely massively. In terms of the motivation, they're there, they want to engage people. So the Men's Health Unlocked has been absolutely amazing, because Lincoln Leeds have just been able to pretty much say, if it's a man within the right age range, they're there for that reason. There's a device, boom, but now they're all gone. So we try and collate on our website the different opportunities and the different schemes that are offering devices and support with digital alongside the actual activity, so that people at the different digital champions, and we've trained nearly 3,000 in the city now, when they're having these positive conversations around digital, can use our website to be able to try and navigate that support, because it's a lot of, because of the way we work with working with those organisations like yourselves that have got specialist skills, knowledge, understanding, to be able to build and develop and offer an offer that really works with your service users. That's great, and we've got all these really specific brilliant offers. But now what we've got is these like pockety things that have all got little bits of capacity that fill up and everything, and then people looking to signpost people in. So that's the next challenge, I think. We've got this ramping up of understanding, and the pandemic, you know, has really, I think we've all 100% digital leads have been absolutely run off our feet for the last year, because we were like, before the pandemic, we were like, just, you know, it was busy, but we're just like chugging along, because people were coming along to digital at different times and stuff. And now over the last year, digital, everyone has been forced, because we've not been able to do stuff face to face. So it's been great, but it's been difficult. So yeah, I'm rambling now, but Men's Health Barker has been fantastic, and it's been absolutely filled up really quickly. So we know that those referral infrastructures are in place. It's just about making some of those links now and seeing where the gaps are and everything. But I've just also had a really exciting meeting. I won't say too much in case it doesn't go on, but with Leeds Community Healthcare, to go for some money for like big plans around pulling all of this together and joining everything up and making sure everything's referred in and stuff. So hopefully next time I come to a meeting, I'll come with like I'm excited. Can you tell I'm really buzzing about it? Sounds really good. I'll talk to you a little bit more in a bit.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Amy. And Damien, you just want to come in there?
Yeah, sorry, just a very quick point, just a point of note really. Amy, thank you very much for your comments. That's really good to hear. I just have to say that the Mental Health Unlocked project, just so everyone knows, is coordinated by Forum Central, and Barker is one of our delivery projects. The reason I mention that is because we want to make sure we appear as inclusive for everyone. It's not just a Barker thing. Barker's skills in doing that tablet thing and their ability and everything has been absolutely brilliant and vital for this project. But we have other delivery partners like Touchstone and Orion as well. So just so everyone knows, it's an open kind of network. So just so everyone knows. Thank you, Naomi. That's very great. It's great to hear. Thank you.
Thanks, Damien. Next update on my screen from Ali, please. Ali Kay.
Ali Kay from Leeds Older People's Forum. I guess two of the most prevalent things at the moment are reported increased levels of anxiety and mental health in older people, particularly those with no previous experience of anxiety or any kind of panic disorder. Quite a number of older people's organisations have been reporting that in the past, I would say since before Christmas and up until this week. And a rise in referrals as well, with 2 neighbourhood networks of older people with mental health problems. The other thing is older people's organisations are really starting to notice the difference amongst those older people who continue to be digitally excluded. One of the things digital inclusion really allows older people to do is to maintain a sense of independence and control over their own affairs like shopping and banking and paying bills, rather than a third party doing all of those for them. And so that's becoming a real issue now, and also in terms of access to primary health care. And quite a bit of work is starting to get underway around supporting organisations how to support older people to manage their health online. In the past couple of weeks, Leeds Older People's Forum, in partnership with Public Health at the Council, have just awarded a second round of older people's grants as part of the Leeds COVID outbreak plan. And the most popular areas of applications were in projects associated with digital inclusion, projects to support people experiencing sensory impairment, and projects that were around practical support, like food support to excluded groups and things like activity packs as well. So those are the kinds of things that people are doing, because that's pretty much all they can do at the moment.
Thank you, Ali. Next on my screen, can I move on to Emily, please? Emily Turner.
Hi there, thank you. Just really, I'm going to tell you quickly about our new campaign that we're going to be starting. We're going to be launching around International Women's Day on the 8th of March, but launching into April. And it's basically revolved around our COVID-19 Women's Survey, but also around what the women in the hub have been talking about. And so it's not about COVID, but it kind of really is, because those issues have come up through COVID, but potentially were pre-existing. And what Damien was saying about the men's work is just really similar, Damien. So as you probably would expect. So the 4 themes that we're going to be working on are around employability and flexible employability, about well-being and mental health, of course, about flexible healthcare choices, and that includes around sort of maternity. And again, like Damien said, that affects men as well, who are sort of going into maternity services with their female partners and wives and stuff. And the 4th is around voice and influence. So ask us and include us before you decide. And that's really kind of, you know, although that's one of our campaign messages, it's one that's kind of already quite strong, really, because obviously we're involved in the community of interest and lots of other ways of consultation through the hub. That happens quite a lot anyway. So although those 4 messages and the campaign as a whole, which will be called Shining a Light on Women's Inequalities, This is Our Normal, you know, that they are certainly COVID focused as well. So I just wanted to let you know that that was happening, and we'd really like support from anybody who feels that they can link in, come to a Women's Hub meeting if you can. Yeah, so that's basically it for me. Everything else seems to be sort of panning along quite nicely. The messages are really good. I want to kind of reiterate the messages, particularly around vaccines. We think that it's making a really positive impact on the vaccine hesitant, especially kind of lots of videos of seeing kind of GPs and members of various different communities promoting that. So I just wanted to also kind of let you know that the feedback that we've heard around messaging around vaccines, particularly for the vaccine hesitant, has been really positive. I think that's it.
Thanks so much, Emily. That's really interesting to hear. Be really putting my Health Watch hat on. I'm sure we'd be really interested if we can contribute to your new campaign. That sounds really fascinating. And also, yeah, they're really pleased to hear as well that the messages around vaccination and hesitancy seem to be working. That's good news. Next on my screen, could I ask Owen to come in, please?
Yep. Hi, Owen Walker from Leeds Automate. It's really good that autism has been mentioned twice. I'd really like buzzing from Sarah and Damien mentioning that. I think in terms of like the vaccine and coronavirus in general, we haven't had like a massive amount of requests for information or advocacy around that. We've had no requests for advocacy around the vaccine. I know that LTHT are doing work there, but I just would hazard to guess that people aren't being offered it because of the difference in like demographic. So people very rarely get a late diagnosis. So I suspect that most people haven't actually been offered it. Or there's a really positive thing that people have got the right messaging and, you know, like they've not had to ask us at all. But we are like working with LTHT to kind of, you know, kind of cover that. But it'd be really, we are going to try and do some engagement in our peer support groups around it and just asking why, you know, people aren't maybe using the vaccine. So it'd be really useful, Anna, to get some key questions that need to be asked, and we'll try and gather that information in those groups. I just kind of I've made notes about picking up on what people have said, so I'm a bit all over the place, but we have had somebody using the Men's Health Unlock scheme and a really positive result. I think one of the things that like came to mind though in that whole process, because they were worried about not getting a tablet, well, that it says 1 month. I know that's not the case, that it's usually 1 month that people have the tablets for, but I suggest that stops people getting them. But also I suspect that some people on low incomes could afford a tablet, and and I'm just wondering if I know you kind of, you know, like struggling to find free tablets to lend out, whether or not there's a kind of avenue to go down around, you know, like recommending low cost tablets that people can have for a long period of time, really, because I know that from previous conversations put off a few people from going it because it's such a short amount of time, seemingly, from the website. And Damien, I'd be really interested to see the kind of like data on the kind of lack of specialist support for autistic men. I wouldn't disagree that there's big gaps there, and I know that in the previous kind of men's health network, I did raise that we'd be open to kind of working in partnership with somebody on having an autism specific men's health group, but it'd be good again to kind of link up with you on that, Damien, to see if you could suggest anyone else, or one person I approached, and get back to me. So apart from that, we're just kind of like trying to get slightly ahead of the curve in terms of all the issues that everybody's facing around health and employment and that kind of thing, and working with the partner organisations that we usually work with to kind of like preempt a slightly delayed reaction which you get from the autistic population in terms of these things. But I'll stop there.
Thanks, Owen. Amy, I think you wanted to come in about the devices question.
Yeah, in terms of the devices, just to say that we are able, although like we're not going to publish recommended these are the devices you should buy, but we can have conversations about which devices are affordable that other people have found to work for them, organizations that have bought them and stuff like that. The problem doesn't tend to be the device though, it tends to be the connectivity. So especially for people that don't have Wi-Fi, and it's that thing where if you have Wi-Fi, it's the cheapest thing, but you need the regular income to be able to have the Wi-Fi. Then in terms of data, if you can get a contract, that's better than pay as you go. But again, you need a regular stream of money. So the people that have less money end up relying on pay as you go, which is a very expensive way to be able to have data. And also, a big part of our strategy, 100% Digital Leads' strategy before the pandemic, was not to provide individuals with data, but to provide free data in free Wi-Fi in community buildings that people could use. And then obviously that has not worked because of the pandemic. So in terms of buying devices, I would say if anybody's thinking about that, talk to us, because it's the connectivity, not the device, that's expensive. And the other thing is to say that we've also having conversations, although it's not me, people within 100% Digital Leads, so I don't know how far they've got or whatever, with Leeds Credit Union. I know that other parts of the country have worked with their local credit unions to be able to get people a better deal on devices, or to be able to allow people to pay in installments where the credit union buys the device outright and then gets paid back. And also and I've spoken to other councils that have worked with their credit union to allow people that don't have the right, for whatever reason can't get a contract, the credit union has taken a contract out in that person's name in some way, and then the person is paid. So that would work for people that don't have the right credit history, but also like other like asylum seekers and people like that that just don't have the financial whatever to be able to do that. There was something else, but I can't remember.
Thanks, Amy. And I think, Rich, I think I saw your hand.
Sorry, I've remembered what it is. Also, I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but Owen, I don't know whether your organisation is part of the Aladdin network that my colleague Ian helps to coordinate. I can't tell you what the accurate. Anyway, it's for organisations supporting people with autism and learning disabilities, isn't it? So
yeah, kind of by proxy, we're involved with LEAP.
Yes. Yeah. And well, if you wanted to do more, you wanted to join those meetings, I know that they've become a really good network for sharing learning and support and stuff like that. So you'd be very welcome, and I could share those meeting details with you.
Thanks, Amy. Rich, did you want to just come in?
Yeah. So I'm the rep on something called For Leads, on something called the Voluntary Sector Communities Emergency Partnership, which is basically the national, pandemic response emergency partnership. It's led by the Red Cross and Salvation Army, so it's the ultra big, voluntary charity organisations that do kind of, disaster responses. But I'm the local rep for Leeds. They have something called an unmet needs request, which I can put in, and that's where you have something very specific that you can't do, that can't be met in Leeds. Then you can put a request into that, and it goes through a gigantic chain of commands, and sometimes it results with actually delivering stuff into your hand. So I know that colleagues, for instance, in Huddersfield, possibly Halifax, delivered a bunch of phone handsets and tablets for volunteers with data attached. That was kind of negotiated from Vodafone, I think, by this national partnership. Not just digital. So, if you're struggling with PPE, if you're struggling, I know that's not really a problem in Leeds particularly, but if you were struggling with food supply, any of those kind of practical things that can be delivered by an emergency response process, if you get hold of me, and I can then go through the application process and get it into the system.
Thanks very much, Richard. That's really good to know. And finally, Stacey, do you want to update anything from a Forum Central point of view?
No, I don't think there's much update really. I think just in terms of the grants that we've been distributing over the last few weeks, thinking about the key messages that we've been running since well before Christmas, just to say that they're paused a little bit for now. We're just regrouping and re-looking at what the next focus is, which is the vaccine, which we understand. But just to let anyone know, if anyone has submitted an application form since before yesterday, they are still being looked at by the panel.
Lovely, thank you, Stacey. Okay, so that concludes the updates for now. We'll see if Charlotte updates us a little bit later. So we'll move on to the next item, which is about digital. Amy, I know you've got something prepared for this. So shall I hand straight over to you?
Yeah, can do. I mean, I'll just do a really quick whiz through, and then because I wasn't sure who was at this meeting, so I'll do a quick whiz through, and then we can open it up and see what people want to talk about, if that's okay. And I know you've got some stuff prepared on her as well, haven't you? Because I've not mentioned the report or anything like that. Nice one. Okay. So I think you all know us anyway, but this is our team, 100% Digital Leeds. So we're a department, but not a department, a programme within the council that's looking to improve digital inclusion across the city. And we do that by working with different organisations and departments and anybody that's got an ongoing positive relationship with people that are more likely to be digitally excluded, or with a group of people for whom some are more likely to be digitally excluded. Because digital exclusion is such a complicated issue, and there's so many reasons why people can be excluded and so many different types of people that can be excluded. It's really hard to identify who those people are, and the needs vary dramatically. So by working with those organisations that already understand the needs and have got lots of specialist skills and knowledge and all of that to be able to support their particular client base, and that also, like I say, have got this ongoing relationship, we're able to work with yourselves to help you to better understand the needs and put different interventions in place. So that's recognising as well what I think it was Mike said before he left in the chat about being able to signpost people to the support that people need to be able to develop their skills and confidence. So recognising that for some people, that is not a short journey. So we really want to move away from previous models of like signposting people into a generic 6-week course or something like that, where people learn the digital skills that we would think people need to be able to get through the world and do the sorts of things that people take for granted. because people don't sign up to those things, or lots of people don't sign up to those things because of lots of complicated issues. So we try and support different organisations and build capacity and all that to be able to do long-term embedded interventions. So people that are more like, so why people are excluded, so connectivity, not having the stuff, not having the Wi-Fi, having the wrong stuff, not having having expensive data packages, having a device that doesn't work properly, having a smartphone when it should be a tablet or a laptop because they're doing loads of different stuff, having the skills, literally not knowing what to do, not knowing how to download an app, not knowing how to attach something to an email. Confidence is anything around worry or fear. So that can be around worry that you're not a digital person and that you can never have those skills, worry that you're not a fast enough learner, so you're never going to be able to pick this up and you're going to embarrass yourself, all the way through to worrying that your bank account is going to get cleared out, or that your children are going to be groomed online, or that you're going to break your device, anything like that around worry. So a more complicated one to be able to overcome. And then motivation is around not knowing the different types of things that you can do online, but also not understanding the relevance to yourself and your own life, and how it can be actually an easier thing, how your life can be easier if you engage with digital. And all these different barriers can be all feed into each other, and people can have them to different levels. So like with the connectivity, you can have a device and some data, but it not be enough for what you need. And with the skills, you can be able to do some stuff, but not be able to do stuff that you need. You can worry about some things, and they can all feed into each other. And with the motivation one, that's around like why again we try and do these longer conversations and support, because recognizing that the end result of what we want somebody to be able to do, for example, manage their universal credit claim, is complicated and it's scary, and there's lots of different skills involved, and people are going to put off and avoid doing that because it's scary and there's really bad consequences if you don't do it, and I wouldn't want to do it. So if we can start off with little things that people enjoy and that sort of helping them stay in their comfort zone, and that they're going to try and they're going to develop these transferable skills so that they can eventually build up the skills and confidence to be where we need them to be. Who is more likely to be excluded? So again, really difficult to tell, but the indicators, and these are sort of established through like national studies and things like that, and all of these really are around the skills needed. Well, literacy is around the skills needed to be able to use digital, and because it's about data and reading and getting data and finding data, which gets literacy. But the other things are really about just opportunity to engage with digital and having a support network around you and stuff. So we try and advocate for this approach of like, there's nothing special. I'm quite good at digital, but that's not because of any innate ability in me. That's because in my job, I have been given a laptop. I am signposted to, my skills are assessed, I'm signposted to free training, I'm encouraged, all that kind of stuff. If you're in a job that isn't an office job, you don't have that kind of support around you. So it's that kind of thing, really. So levels of formal education, literacy, income and social grade, and age. Although age is an interesting one because the biggest group of digitally excluded people is older people, but that doesn't mean to say that age in itself, when looking at an individual, is a good indicator of whether somebody would be included or excluded. Yeah. Other things that make things harder is why communities of interest are more likely to be digitally excluded than others, because of things that just make it harder to engage with stuff in general. So language barriers, disabilities, learning disabilities, long-term health conditions, mental health needs, etc., etc. And the end thing is to say there's tens of thousands, we reckon before we started about 90,000 adults in Leeds that are offline or can't use the digital stuff that is expected of them wrongly when systems are designed and all that kind of thing. And we've seen that ramped up with the pandemic, because obviously everyone's rushed to adapt their services to be delivered digitally because they've had to reduce the face-to-face, which is great. And it's wonderful how quickly organisations have been able to change and adapt and flex, but we know that inequality of access has been exacerbated because of this, because digital. So stuff that we can offer. So like I said at the start, our role is just to help you get where you need to be, and we will pretty much do whatever it is that is needed. So helping you to understand the issue, workshop ideas, make connections, access training, support, apply for funding, identify funding, get where you need to be in whatever that might be, basically. So if you're doing anything around digital, and I know a lot of you are already in touch with us anyway, or have had conversations in the past, or some of you I know are like tight with Rachel as well. So get in touch with us and we'll help as much as can. But these are some of the things that we can do. So digital champion training, I know loads of people in this group have had this. Generic type training that is we can offer to anybody, but any staff, volunteers, anybody in the community, basically anybody that might be having conversations with people that might be digitally excluded or not making best use of digital. And it's not about being a digital expert, it's about being supportive and making sure people get the support they need and having positive conversations and helping people to understand those motivation factors of, you know, they can be a digital person. So like what I think was it Ali was saying about the difference between older people that are digitally included and older people that are not as included. The older people can be some of the hardest to be able to get on board because, you know, all of those different barriers. But we know, because we've done it, that people chipping away, having positive conversations, getting them to do little things, showing them the benefits and stuff like that, people can get there. So that's what the Digital Champions is about. Signposting to support. So like I mentioned before, on our website, and I've given this to Stacey to circulate as well, and these links work and everything. On our website, we try and put information about anything that is available to support people with any of those barriers around digital. So we include on there numbers that people can call for support. This is for individuals. Schemes that people can be referred into, cheaper broadband deals, cheaper, you know, when you get these special deals that phone companies are doing. So like Vodafone's doing 6 months of unlimited data for £10 a month to job seekers, stuff like that, put on there so that can be used as a signposting tool. If anybody has got anything that you want people to be referred into, let me know and we can put that on there, and also we can take stuff off there as well. So that's where like the social prescribers and all those different digital champions are looking all the time. So if you're looking for people, then put it on there. Finding and applying for funding is something that we're doing loads of at the moment. So basically digital, as we see it currently, is like business critical because you can't do face to face. So we'd like to see whatever people's funding project is to try and build digital inclusion and digital capacity into that, and we can help you with that. If you're doing a funding application for something else, we can help you to build digital into that, or vice versa. If you've got an idea and you want to apply for funding and identify it, we can help you with that as well. And then finally, bringing people together and forming partnerships. So like we're really big fans of sharing knowledge and working together and working collaboratively and all of that. So like that Aladdin network that I mentioned before to Owen, that's something that it's not come from us. Nothing we do ever really comes from us. It comes from the different organisations and that need that's identified, and we just facilitate. But that was off the back of lots of different organisations, all of whom support adults with learning disabilities or autism, that we'd worked with separately, and we'd sort of got talking to each other and everything, and now they're coming together to look at different funding bids. There's some, I think this is knowledge, but let's keep it in the group just in case it isn't wider knowledge. But I know that now there has been money identified for a person that's going to sit within a pyramid to work on developing the digital inclusion support infrastructure with those organisations for adults with learning disabilities and autism. And that's come off the back of the bits of work that's been done by all the organisations, and it's sort of rolled organically, and it's amazing. And also the work that Ali has been doing with Rachel around supporting the neighbourhood networks and older people's organisations as well. So those are just some of the things that we can do. I've sort of tried to bunch together the things that seems to do most of. So some of the things that's going on at the moment. So again, so Rachel started working with neighbourhood networks to look at how they could develop their digital inclusion, and working with Leeds Older People's Forum. And I've probably missed off some partners, so sorry about that. But there's a link there. There's an event. Ali might be able to tell us a bit more, but there's an event coming up, I think, next month that you might want to join if you're interested in that. Information about the Aladdin network on there, if anybody's interested in that. We're also working with, at the moment, Beeston and Middleton Local Care Partnership, looking at a place-based approach to improving digital inclusion with a view to improving access to health and reducing health inequalities, and that's directly in response to Healthwatch's report on digitising Leeds. Also works with some people here, I don't know who's still here, but some people who were here anyway earlier, around developing a funding bid for looking at improved mental health support access for refugees and asylum seekers. So again, that was bringing together people that I'd spoken to that had all said similar things around either their mental health services being accessible for refugees and asylum seekers, or organisations that support refugees and asylum seekers talking about how they're struggling to get signpost people into mental health provision because of digital inclusion issues and other issues. So bringing people together to think about that, design an approach that was going to work for everyone, and then identifying funding, and we're waiting for a bid to come through for that. Working with on a homeless health peer advocacy project with Bevan Healthcare and Groundswell in Leeds as well, and building digital inclusion into that. And then Carers Leeds have recently got money for a person and some equipment. So we've worked with Carers Leeds for ages and ages, but now supporting them, and they've had money from Leeds Community Healthcare to look at basically how they can be the first point of referral for people with unpaid caring responsibilities when it comes to digital inclusion and access to health and general stuff as well. So that's a bit of a whistle stop because I know I've not got much time. I've not even been looking in the chat, but I've seen that it's popping off. People saying they've got to go. Okay, so that is me. And I've got my I won't go into that. I don't think we've got time. There's my contact details. Is that all right? I didn't want looking at the clock, so I probably did more than 5 minutes as well. Sorry.
We're a bit short of time, so I think Stacey, I might have a chat with you later, maybe about moving my item to the next meeting, possibly, if that's all right. Just another digital item about health, specific health conditions. So maybe we could have a 15-minute discussion at the next meeting. I'm just conscious that we've not got much time.
Sorry.
Yeah. Just to update you, Anna, I've only got one update around the Connect and Support on the next item. If just quite aware that we've just got sort of 10 minutes, so shall we move your item to the next one, and I'll just give a bit.
Fine, yeah, don't worry. That's absolutely fine, Stacey. Thank you. Thanks, Amy. That was really helpful update on what you've been up to. And yeah, no doubt, digital is going to be just as important this year as it was last year. So yeah, great that that we're all keeping our foot on the gas, as it were, on that agenda. So I'll move on to you, Stacey, for the final bit of the meeting.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it was just an update around the Connect and Support, which is formerly the Track and Trace. So Track and Trace is kind of the national programme. In Leeds, we've got Connect and Support. So that's made up of the partnership, Barker, Orion, and I can't think of the third one, if anyone wants to chip in with that. But it's the Be Together partnership that will be leading on that. And essentially what that is when people are not able to be contacted by the national Track and Trace system, either they might not be responding or however they can't get in touch, it's then passed on to local organisations who people have possibly heard of. It will be a local number that's calling them. They're more likely to answer the telephone, and people are more likely to respond. But what that means as well is that those local people know the area, they know what resources and support is available. So if someone says they're not able to isolate because they need to care for someone, they can be then signposted into the appropriate support and given the right resources to be able to do that. So just to let you know, in the last couple of weeks, about 8-9 days, it's gone up from 15% to 21%. And that is calls from the local helpline, who are leading on that at the moment. And I'll call them door knockers. I'm not quite sure if we've got a technical term for them at the moment, but they're due to go live any time at the moment. So again, that's where people might not be either answering the telephone or answering to letters. People can actually go and knock on the door, which is not as bad as what it sounds. It's not a case of, you know, knocking on the door and saying you must stay in. It's about knocking on the door and saying, we understand you've tested positive for COVID. How can we help? So if people do have any concerns around what those roles the door knockers might have, if you could just reassure them to say it's not about enforcing anything, it's just to make sure that you've got the right support available. So that's the update on that.
Thanks.
Can I just, sorry, I'm not sure if I did touch on it around the vaccine, just to let you know, in Leeds as well, we are on track for all the JVCI priority groups, which is the over 80s, over 70s, clinically extremely vulnerable, and yes. So if you hear of anyone saying that they have heard that someone's had the vaccine that doesn't quite match what the priority is, just to let you know that some primary care networks and GP practices and vaccine sites, when it comes to the end of the day, if for some reason they've had snow, so they've not been able to get those CEV people in or those over 80s, they're putting that call out to organisations because nobody wants to waste the vaccines. But we're quite aware that it is also sending a little bit of a mixed message. So if you are hearing that, if you can just relay that sometimes it looks a little bit different. Is that okay?
That's great. Thank you very much, Stacey. That's great. And yeah, I know I've heard anecdotally lots of people you know, who've been called up sort of very last minute, who wouldn't normally be in the sort of vulnerable category. So it's definitely happening quite commonly, I think. All right, so I think we're more or less on track. Just a couple last things to finish up. Any other business, and also, does anybody have anything that they would desperately like to be on the agenda for the next meeting, which I think is 2 weeks today? Any guests that you would particularly like to be invited as well? I'm sure if anybody has any ideas over the next week or so, are they all right to just email you, Stacey, to request that?
Yeah, if you can email the communities of interest as well. Just my inbox gets quite full, and I tend to focus a little bit more on the community's email inbox. So yeah, that's great. And also as well, can I just mention to people, if you are out there and you're hearing people share any positive messages, especially from certain communities of interest, especially Black, Asian, minority ethnic, homeless and sex workers, if they've got any, if they're happy to be recorded to share their vaccination experience, the CCG and us at Forum Central are looking to be able to share those recordings and positive messages if anyone knows of anybody that wants to get involved.
That sounds like a good initiative, Stacey. So I think with 4 minutes to spare in that case, that's us. So everybody will doubtless now be, you know, have another meeting to go to in 4 minutes time. So you've got time to get a cup of tea.
Thanks, Anna.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone.